All right, today we're going to unpack a pretty wild theory, one that connects global power, money, and oil through what our source calls a repeatable four-stage playbook. Now, the argument it lays out is, well, it's compelling for sure, but definitely controversial.
So, the source we're looking at kicks things off with this absolutely shocking hypothetical news story. I mean, just picture it. You wake up on a Monday morning, and the news is that over the weekend, while you were just going about your life, U.S. forces captured the president of Venezuela, flew him to New York, and put him in a federal courtroom. It's a crazy scenario, right? And yeah, it's designed to grab your attention, and it works.
So that immediately begs the question, right? Why would something like that ever happen? Is it just some random chaotic event, or is there some kind of hidden logic at play? Well, in this explainer, we're going to walk through the source's argument for what it claims is the real story behind a move like this.
And this is where it gets really interesting. According to the source, an event like that, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. In fact, it argues it would be the predictable final step in a very specific geopolitical playbook. A playbook that, it claims, has been used over and over again.
Okay, but before we can even get into the playbook itself, we have to understand the why. What's the motivation? And at the very center of this whole theory is something called the petrodollar system. Look, for the last 50 years, this has basically been the bedrock of American economic power. The deal is simple. Oil is priced in US dollars. So if you're a country and you want to buy oil, you first have to buy US dollars. This creates this constant, absolutely massive global demand for the currency. And according to the source, that is a pillar of American economic strength that has to be protected, no matter what.
And that brings us to the playbook itself. The source calls it the resource intervention cycle, and it's pretty straightforward. It's got 4 distinct stages, and they always happen in this exact order. First, you isolate the target country economically. Second, you demonize its leadership. Third, you intervene with military force. And finally, fourth, you extract that nation's resources.
Now, this isn't just some abstract theory about what could happen. The source is pretty bold here. It argues this four-stage pattern is a historical fact, and it's been validated by decades of foreign policy. They even provide some key examples.
And this table here lays it out perfectly. Take a look. You've got Iran in 1953. The trigger? They nationalized their oil. The official justification? Oh, it was a communist threat. Fast forward to Iraq in 2003. The trigger? Saddam Hussein started selling oil in euros instead of dollars. And the justification we all heard was weapons of mass destruction. Then there's Libya in 2011. Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed currency. The reason given for intervention? A humanitarian crisis. You see the pattern the source is pointing to? In every single case, it claims the real trigger was an economic threat to the system, and the outcome was always about regaining control over the resources.
Okay, so now that we have that historical framework in mind, let's bring it all back to where we started. How does this four-stage cycle explain what happened in Venezuela? I mean, why would it be the target in the first place? Well, the answer, according to the source, starts with a single number, 303 billion. It's a massive, kind of mind-boggling figure. But what does it actually mean? It means barrels. That's the largest proven crude oil reserve on the entire planet. We're talking more than Saudi Arabia, and all of it is sitting right there in one country, pretty much in America's backyard. So from a pure resource perspective, the scale of the prize is, well, it's just unmatched. And this is how the source maps Venezuela's recent history directly onto that four-stage playbook we just talked about. Stage 1, economic isolation. That kicked off back in 2015 with sanctions that absolutely crippled their economy. Then you have Stage 2, leadership demonization. That ramped up in 2020 when the Department of Justice issued a narco-terrorism indictment against the president. See how this is lining up? It perfectly sets the stage for our hypothetical Stage 3, a swift military intervention. And then, of course, you get to Stage 4, extraction. And the source points to this quote as, well, as a stunningly clear statement of what the intent is. The goal is laid out right there in the open. Control the money, control the resources, and make sure it benefits the intervening power. This chart really puts the stakes into perspective. You can see how the sanctions absolutely crushed Venezuela's oil production. It went from over 2 million barrels a day all the way down to just 800,000. But look at the projection post-intervention. The source projects that production could surge to 3 or even 4 million barrels a day. That is a massive amount of oil hitting the global market, and it would all be under new management. Yeah, but what about the obvious counter-argument, right? That these leaders are actually, bad guys, dictators, terrorists, and so on. Well, the source tackles this head-on. It claims the morality of a leader isn't the reason for an intervention, it's the justification. The real trigger, according to this whole theory, is when any leader, good or bad, it doesn't matter, challenges fundamental U.S. economic interests.
So, what's the bottom line here? The source argues this isn't just some abstract theory for political science classrooms. No, this pattern, if it's real, has direct, tangible consequences for global markets, for the price you pay for energy, and even for your own financial outlook.
So, what should you actually take away from all this? Well, a few things, according to the source. First, expect way more volatility in energy prices, because these interventions are a primary driver of it. Second, it kind of flips the script on the US dollar. Instead of seeing its dominance as fading, this theory argues it's being actively, even aggressively enforced. And maybe most importantly, it gives you a lens to look through. When you start seeing headlines about a resource-rich country and suddenly there are escalating sanctions and its leader is being demonized, you can recognize the pattern and maybe even anticipate what could come next. There's a quote from the source that just perfectly captures the essence of this whole argument. It says the pattern doesn't care about justifications, that it just unfolds like gravity, and that your opinion of gravity doesn't stop you from falling. The idea is that this is just an impersonal, resource-driven process. It happens whether we agree with the reasons given or not, kind of like a force of nature. And that really leaves us with one final and pretty provocative question. If the source is right, if this pattern is real and it's documented, then the only question left to ask is, who's next?